Who else? Give us another one.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Probably came from like the whole biting the head off the bat thing. That feels like there's probably some disease in there that caused it.
Like you would have thought it would have been because he was standing in front of massive speakers for like decades. No.
My professional opinion is the bat.
Welcome to the Ask an Audiologist podcast, real audiology white papers written by real audiologists and explained to you by a real audiologist and a guy who isn't. Now here are your hosts, Dr. Allie and Kevin Ziener.
It's Monday, and that means it's time for Ask an Audiologist. I'm Kevin Ziener.
And I'm Dr. Allie Tressiter.
And for today's article, we are going to make it relatable by talking about celebrities who have suffered from and treated their tinnitus. This article was written by Dr. Liliana Cabrera Piccini from the PA Center for Hearing and Balance in Springfield, Pennsylvania. And honestly, celebrities, they're just like us, Dr. Allie. They suffer from all things hearing related, including tinnitus.
For sure. I mean, they have to go to the grocery store too. I mean, they're just like us.
And they wear clothes like us.
They do.
When they go to the grocery store, which is less than desirable.
For sure.
That's the only time where I'm somewhat thankful that I'm not a celebrity, though we clearly are celebrities. You've been written up in Forbes magazine, where I'm like, I'm wearing sweats, I'm wearing slippers, and I am now in the CVS, and nobody's taking photos of me.
For sure. Let me be clear. Nobody needs to approach me ever outside of this podcast because I probably look homeless.
Yes. Especially when there's just like stray dogs walking around, you big huskies, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. So Dr. Allie, talk to us about some celebrities who we may or may not know, but obviously we're all going to know them, who have suffered from tinnitus and what their potential treatments were.
Sure. So we're going to start with William Shatner.
Oh, okay.
Who I love, which everybody will know him from Star Trek, right? But for me, my first experience with William Shatner was Rescue 911. Do you remember this show?
Rescue 911. It sounds super familiar to me.
It was in the 90s. Okay. I don't know if it went into the 2000s, maybe, but in the 90s, William Shatner would talk all about these, people who needed to go to the hospital. Okay. Right? And they got rescued. And so he would talk about it.
There was 9 seasons of it, according to Google. Yeah.
Listen, Rescue 911 was my jam. And that's how I know William Shatner. So I'm just saying.
I watched him on Boston Legal.
I never watched that show.
It's great because he played like it was a very left wing leaning show, but he played like a diehard Republican in Boston, and so he was always going against the grain. His character's name was Denny Crane, and he was just always like this bigger than life, somewhat dementia riddled character who was a blast. So yes, we all have our own kind of William Shatnerisms of where we remember him from.
Right. So my William Shatner treated his tinnitus with hearing aids, but I don't know. Do you know what your William Shatner treated his hearing
Probably just continued to shoot guns based on what I knew about his character in Boston Legal.
That could be effective because one of the treatments for tinnitus, right, is sound exposure, right? Okay. And so possibly if those were like fake guns and they weren't super loud to damage his hearing, could be like, a little sound stimulus. So
I think that's great. And I love the fact that somebody who we all love, like Bill Shatner, had tinnitus. Because he was also a singer, I believe.
Was he?
I think he was like a crooner. I think if you Google hard, you can find him being more of like a Frank Sinatra lounge singer guy.
He strikes me as like a smooth jazz type guy.
Yeah.
But you know who else has tinnitus?
Do tell.
Steve Martin, the man who has not aged in like 40 years. He's looked the same for 40 years.
Did you ever see the movie, what was Parenthood that he was in?
No.
So he's in Parenthood. He looks the exact same, right? He looks exactly like Steve Martin. He's married. He has 3 kids. In that movie, he's supposed to be 35 years old. I'm older.
Does he have white hair?
Yes. It is ash white, like completely white. I'm older now than Steve Martin was then, and he still looks like my grandfather then with that beautiful white mane.
I mean, good for him for not getting typecast, right? Like the man can play any age.
Yeah.
Good for him.
He's also a musician.
That I did know.
Plays the banjo.
I did know that.
He's fantastic.
He is wonderful at the banjo.
Who else? Give us another one.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Probably came from like the whole biting the head off the bat thing. That feels like there's probably some disease in there that caused it.
Yeah, like you would have thought it would have been because he was standing in front of massive speakers for like decades. No.
My professional opinion is the bat.
That's an audiology professional right there saying
I'm just saying secondary is probably the loud noise exposure, but like, I mean, right?
I doubt it. It's definitely the bat. It's definitely the bat.
Who else? Chris Martin, is that his name from
Get there.
Coldplay?
Coldplay.
Mm-hmm.
Gwyneth Paltrow's ex.
Yes.
Maybe that's why he has hearing loss.
Now he is with the lady from the Grey movie with the billionaire guy. 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh.
Who's that girl?
That's Dakota Johnson.
Yeah, so I think they're together.
Who's Melanie Griffith's daughter?
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
This is no longer an audiology podcast. This is a celebrity gossip rag podcast.
I mean, what else was it going to be when we were talking about celebrities with tinnitus?
So I do have a question. So these celebrities who have tinnitus, right? Mm-hmm. Again, tinnitus is non-discriminate. It'll hit anybody at any point in time, right? If you're a human being, chances are you're going to experience it. But what would you think outside of the musicians who have sold out massive, amphitheaters and coliseums? What do you think it's about that particular profession that would expose actors, actresses, people of fame to tinnitus?
I bet one huge contributing factor is stress and lack of sleep. I mean, the two of those are between stress, lack of sleep, and caffeine. Those three are a perfect storm of like tinnitus generators, right? And so if you're tired and you had a giant cup of coffee, which I did, there's a good chance it'll make your tinnitus sound worse. If I didn't watch the original Star Trek with William Shatner, but I imagine there were some types of explosions around him, right? I mean, right? I mean, I don't know.
Theoretically,
in space
fights,
right?
Do you think that between his screaming, adoring fans who are screaming out, Bill, Will, Willie,
Billy Boy,
exactly, explosions on set, him being a singer, and then just probably the man has the gift of gab, like all of those combined with maybe some vices?
I mean, for sure.
Okay.
Really, I mean, the biggest contributor to tinnitus is going to be any sort of damage to the auditory system. And people in positions like that where just walking outside, they probably have screaming fans around them. Like even that little bit of damage can cause tinnitus. So it's everywhere they go, they're at risk for this damage to their auditory system.
What's the threshold for too loud?
So that depends.
Okay.
So it's all based on how long you're exposed to the sound.
Okay.
So if we think about just OSHA standards, you are allowed to be exposed to 85 decibels of sound for 8 hours.
Legally.
Okay. I mean, according to OSHA.
Got it.
Now, as that sound goes up, now let's say it was 87 or 88. That's cut in half. Now it's only 4 hours.
Got it.
Okay. And so that's why a gunshot, which is at 140, 145, that's less than a second, but that's enough to cause damage. So it's all about how long you're exposed, keeping in mind that some auditory systems are just more sensitive than others.
Got it.
So what gives me hearing loss right away may not give you hearing loss quite as quickly.
I also thought when celebrities do the red carpet, the procession with all of the cameramen and fan, like Allie over here, Allie over here.
This happens
Allie
to me daily, by the way.
Allie, look, why are you at CVS in your sweats? Like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be it. I have the same list that you have. There's other people who are on this list. Huey Lewis.
Listen.
Do you know who Huey Lewis is? And the news?
Who he is. I didn't know enough to talk about him though, so I left him
out. He's amazing. You would know all of his songs.
Yeah? Give me one. Sing one.
Well, there's, okay. The one that I actually grew up listening to Huey Lewis and the News.
Okay.
There was a song that as a 5-year-old I would sing over and over and over. I don't know that it's necessarily applicable, but the song is about him being in love, but he doesn't want to be in love anymore.
I instead of you describing, let's hear it.
But he says, I want a new drug, one that won't make me sick, one that won't make me, what is it? Something too high or make me feel 2 feet. Something like that.
Listen, Kev, that was
not
great.
Huey Lewis, I respect Huey Lewis far too much to sing his song.
Okay, I respect that.
The other one would be Eric Clapton. You know Eric Clapton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Slow hand. Mm-hmm. Love Eric Clapton. Liza Minnelli.
Yes.
So I had a conversation with somebody the other day. First off, you're younger than me. Do you know who Liza Minnelli is?
I know who she is.
Do you know who Liza Minnelli's mother is?
Oh, I do.
It blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind.
I know who it is.
And this one, her mother definitely would have had tinnitus and a drinking problem.
I can't remember.
Judy Garland.
Yes,
yeah,
that's it.
Dorothy.
Yep.
Blew my mind. Do you want to know the other thing that blew my mind? Do you know how tall Judy Garland was?
She's either going to be super tall or super short.
4'11". Yeah. And usually people lie about their height. So Judy Garland was probably like 4'9".
I just want to stand her next to you. I mean, if I could, like, just stand the two of you. It'd be like you would be gargantuan.
Yes. She would think I was a freak from the future, which technically I am.
Kind of.
So, Allie, if you were to put a somewhat professional bow on this rather lackadaisical episode of Ask an Audiologist, what would you say?
I think what's important is that tinnitus can feel incredibly isolating. You can feel super alone when you have tinnitus because nobody can hear it, right? It's just you. It almost feels impossible to describe to somebody unless they also have it. And so knowing that you're not alone and knowing that actually like 10, 15, 20% of people in the US also have tinnitus and famous people have tinnitus just makes you feel a little bit less alone. And so that to me is the most important thing to take from this is that you're not alone and there are treatments out there.
I love it. So the next time you're watching your favorite show or listening to your favorite band and you have your beautiful hearing devices in, stop and think that those actors and musicians are just like you.
Just like us.
And to find more interesting conversations and more interesting content, go to askanaudiologist.com. And Dr. Allie, as always, thank you.
And thank you, Kev.
We'll see you guys next week with a far more professional episode of Ask an Audiologist. Have a great week.
You can find more information at askanaudiologist.com. And you can follow us on all our social channels at Ask an Audiologist. The information provided on this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice.
Everybody knows that Dr. Allie knows about ears. Obviously, I am proficient in the trigeminal nerve.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, that is your forte.